Tell me about elementary school and middle school Darcy. What was that like?
I think it became very apparent quite early on that I was labeled as shy. I avoided talking to most people. In fact, I have an older sister who I use to relay information to the world with her help. And so I would whisper into her ear and then she would serve as my voice. And so a lot of elementary school and middle school was trying to really being pushed to come out of that pattern with some success.
What's the age difference between you and your sister?
We are 18 months apart and we are night and day. She is blonde, I'm brunette-ish, and people our whole lives have always really seen like the dichotomy between the two of us, where she's more bubbly and outgoing, and I've always been more of the shy, reserved one.
There had to have been moments or seasons where she was in like middle school and you were stuck in elementary school. So, how did you fare without her given the age difference between the two of you?
Yeah, it did happen in the transition between elementary, middle school, and high school that there would always be 1 year where she was not present. And so I certainly felt like one of those kids that had my best friend was born into my family.
Hmm.
And I really relied on her friendship and presence to guide me socially. And that year that she was never or that she wasn't there because of she transitioned to the grade above me, I really suffered in a lot of ways because I didn't have the skills to make my own connections. I always relied upon her friend group. And so I was always brought in as like the third wheel or the fourth wheel. It's like, oh, this is Kelly's sister, Darcy. And then those became my friends. But it was also helpful in some ways
Hmm.
because by time, for example, when I went to high school, she already had a fledgling friend group, and I just inserted myself right in there. And that same pattern repeated all the way through college.
So, then for that year where she was on to the next school, did you keep to yourself? Did you gravitate more to your teachers? What did that year look like when Darcy was running solo with her sister in the next school?
I think a good mixture. I would often keep to myself. I would do a lot of art, spend time in the library with my teachers, always trying to dread the school cafeteria moments where you don't have anyone to sit with. I ultimately did end up making my own friends, but it never felt as safe and lasting as it did with adhering myself to my sister's friend group.
So I know we're talking about elementary, middle school, high school, but I'm curious, what's the relationship that you have with your sister today? Are you still close? Is she still your voice? Or what does that look like as adults?
That is a good question. I would say that, we are still very close. She's still the person that I identify as my best friend. I think that there was a period post college where our lives went separate ways. We pursued different careers. We pursued different, even just physical locations that we were living in. And a lot of a lot of my early 20s were really spent in a lot of internal reflection of trying to separate myself from my sister and really formulating my own identity and who I was. And I think probably the same experience slightly for her, but certainly not to the same degree. Where for me it was always this is Darcy Kelly, and for her it was Lois and Kelly, and she had her own identity. So yeah, I think that my early 20s ended up being a lot, maybe potentially a lot harder than the average 2020 experience, because not only was I trying to find a career, I was also trying to find my own distinct identity as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that happens to everyone, right? Just at different stages in life of like, who am I and what do I actually care about? And so, any advice for someone that might be going through that season right now?
I think it's really just celebrating what makes you different from your sibling, finding your own interests, not being ashamed of those interests, really just being bold and trying new things, even if it means going solo, because you'll never know who you'll meet there. And I've been very fortunate that I've met and made a lot of friends in the moments where I did something my sister couldn't do with me and push myself. For example, when I was in college, I studied abroad. My sister did not come along. And I met a lot of amazing people in there. And I also really started to grasp who I was as an individual, separate from my sister, who had always been that voice for me.